when you're interviewing somebody, how much time do you give them to think about their answer before you become impatient?
How much time do I give them? I give them all the time that they want, and I actually kind of like it when they take some time to think about things rather than just blurting out the first thing that comes to their mind. Then again, if you rehearsed, and job interviews aren't all about rehearsals, they're about being who you are. If you have thought about the questions that you might get, you ought to be ready to answer them pretty quickly. But think about the answer. If you have to pause for a few seconds, we do media training at our company. We teach people how to be interviewed by the media or how the best ways to do it. And one thing that we teach is when a reporter asks somebody a question, think about the answer. Maybe that break is 5 seconds while you're thinking about the answer. It may seem like a half an hour to you, but it's really not that long. So you could go, what was my biggest frustration? That's a really good question. Think about that. I had 2 or 3, quite honestly, with you. And while you said that, you had some time to think about it. But I think the biggest one was fill in the blank. What sort of goals did you set for yourself this year? They want to know that you have goals. Okay, so try not to be making them up during the job interview. I hope you all have goals for what you're going to do this year. It's 2014, not too late to make them. What's the most difficult project you've ever worked on, and how did you get through it? Again, that's a similar question to a couple of the ones that we've already had. And remember, I asked 4 or 5 people to submit questions to me that do job interviewing all the time, and these are the questions. A lot of them wanted to know how you deal with frustration and conflict. So just be ready for that. What do you most enjoy doing? Do you like to exercise? Do you run? Do you like to participate in other sports? Do you like to read? Do you like to go to movies? They're just interested in learning more about you. Tell me about a time when you were on a deadline and hit a brick wall. No obvious solution, but you had to do something and just make it work. Understand that we're in a business where we do a lot of writing and we have a lot of deadlines, and it is frustrating when you go to somebody and they've missed their deadline. Clients don't like things to be late. That's pretty much true in any business. I think a time when you were at a deadline, you hit a brick wall, no obvious solution, you had to do something and just make it work. Anybody had any experience like that? You probably have at some point in your life. So think about that. Think about that. And then what kind of work energizes you, and then what kind of work saps your energy? That's a different way of asking a question, but it's very important differences. They want to say, what kind of work that energizes me is work that you have to think about, work that I know is important. And that's the kind of work I know I'm going to get at this organization. What kind of work saps your energy? What they're trying to see is, does that kind of thing sap your energy? You might say, well, I would just rearrange. Nothing really saps my energy. Some work is more tiring than others, but I like challenges. So it's a kind of a different way of answering the question. Even if we do a lot of informational interviews, I get people who I know who are friends or associates, and they say, hey, would you mind interviewing so-and-so? He or she is not really sure what they want to do, but they might want to do something related to your business. I always do that when I'm asked to do that. So if you're not really sure what you want to go into, but you think it might be in this particular industry, maybe I want to go into communications, but I'm not sure if it's marketing or PR or whatever. But so-and-so over here at this advertising agency might be able to give me some advice. Do that. Connections. Let me tell you the way I got my first job. I was out of the University of Georgia. I had the journalism and the business degree. I had done some stringer work for a paper up in South Carolina, the Anderson Independent. I'd also done some work in Jackson County for a newspaper. I ended up, I was at a social event, a party at my sister's house, and I ran into an executive at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And he said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm just trying to get a job at a newspaper that I'll probably end up working out, in Marietta or someplace, and I hope someday to work at your paper. Well, come on in and do an interview. You got the right background. I just happened to be at that event. I ran into him. I would not have had I not been at that event. So connections are everywhere. There are places where you don't expect them. So be out there talking to people. And by the way, do any of y'all have your own websites that are about you? I'm seeing that more and more with young folks. They're coming in and they say, yeah, here's my resume, but I've also got a website that might tell you a little bit more about me. Those are really interesting. There's more and more of those, and we look at them really carefully. And something else about online media, be really careful what you put on Facebook and other things about you, because what are you going to do when you just had a job interview and they say, you know, we really like you, we're taking a long look at you, we've narrowed it down to about 3 people. Would you mind if I could be your friend on Facebook and I could just have a look around in there? What are they going to find in there? So, you know, just be careful about that. We actually had somebody in our firm who was a senior person, and somebody said, well, I went in her Facebook page and I found some colorful language. And I don't think that's appropriate. A lot of people know that she works for us. So we talked to her about it. But had we seen that before we hired her, we might not have. So just remember, in the online age, everything is there for public display, so just be careful about that. Interview for your professional or related one. Respect the interviewer's time, especially if it's just an informational interview. And one more thing, again, I just said that. Expect the organization to check you out on social media. This is kind of interesting. Let me set the stage for this one. We are right now doing a communications audit for a very large organization that you've all heard of. It's confidential, so I can't tell you who it is. What's a communications audit? Well, we look at their communications department. We make sure they got the right people. We make sure they got the right jobs. We make sure that they've got the right reporting relationships, those kind of things. So the people who asked us to do this were the senior executives of this organization, 2 people.